Let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're decoding the absolutely insane escalation of aviation luxury. We are climbing the ultimate flight price ladder, starting from sheer literal terror in the skies all the way up to unimaginably jaw-dropping wealth. So if you've ever found yourself wondering just how drastically a flight can change based on the ticket price and what kind of impossible, crazy perks unlock at the very top, well, you're in exactly the right place. Let's get into it. Our final destination on this journey? A private jet where a single, solitary flight costs $500,000. I mean, just let that number sink in for a second. $500,000 for one trip. That's literally more than most people spend on a permanent home, just completely vanishing in the span of a single afternoon up in the clouds. So the obvious question we have to ask is, what exactly does that kind of absurd money actually buy you at 30,000 feet? Well, to truly grasp this absolute peak of luxury and to appreciate the mind-bending scale of a $500,000 ticket, we kind of have to ground ourselves first. We need to start at the absolute bottom of the barrel to see what the cheapest possible option feels like. And here it is, the $1 flight. We are talking about an open-air, terrifyingly rickety little plane with an engine that sounds exactly like a struggling lawnmower. It is so small and you're so incredibly exposed that the wind is just violently whipping past you. And the pilot, Doug, he's entirely focused on just keeping you alive. When his best piece of advice right before takeoff is simply keep your seatbelt on, yeah, you know that basic survival is pretty much the only perk you're getting at this price point. Okay, but watch what happens when we make the leap from a $1 flying death trap to a $1,000 commercial first-class ticket. It changes absolutely everything. Suddenly the terror, totally gone. Instead, you're greeted with fine dining, luxury toiletries, perfectly tailored pajamas, and something they actually call miracle mist lotion. But honestly, the absolute best part for most people, you get this private coffin-like pod that converts into a fully flat bed, giving you total blissful isolation from everyone else on board. Now, here's where the bizarre inconsistencies of extreme luxury really start kicking in. At $10,000, you get unlimited legroom, a private lounge, and, incredibly, a working shower in the sky. You'd naturally think paying $15,000 more for the $25,000 ticket would guarantee an even better bathroom, right? Nope. Actually, you gain massive space and a full queen-size bed, but the bathroom shrinks way down, loses the heated floors, and they drop the shower entirely. Make it make sense. Oh, and before we leave commercial aviation entirely behind, there's this one detail that's just universally hilarious. You can drop 10 grand on a 16-hour flight, have your own private shower, stretch out with unlimited legroom, and the airline is still gonna hit you up for $20 to connect to the Wi-Fi. It's wild. It just proves that no matter how much cash you drop, annoying airline fees are completely inescapable. Actually, circling back to that $25,000 flight for a second, despite having multiple private rooms and a literal queen-sized bed, the weirdly disappointing bathroom led to this brilliantly brutal verdict. I wouldn't recommend this. I would recommend a car. I mean, when buying an actual, literal vehicle feels like a better financial move than a single plane ticket, you know this price ladder is getting dangerously skewed. All right, moving on to Section 1, the private jet threshold at $100,000. Crossing this $100,000 threshold, the whole paradigm shifts. You aren't just renting a seat or a room anymore, you get the entire plane to yourself. It is essentially a flying boutique hotel with 4 distinct rooms. And since you completely dictate the schedule, that means 0 TSA lines, no taking off your shoes at security, and absolutely no layovers. As for the food, you can order up a high-end steak with mashed potatoes, or just bring a massive stack of pizzas on board to crush with your friends in your private flying bedroom. The perks at this level get so profoundly ridiculous that you can actually watch TV directly from the toilet. Just a heads up though, the takeoff is so unbelievably smooth, you might not even realize you're airborne while sitting backward on the commode. And you definitely want to double check that door lock just to make sure a friend doesn't get trapped in there when a turbulence hits. Which brings us to Section 2, the bizarre detour, a $300,000 blimp. So logically, you'd expect the next step up from a private jet to be, an even faster, sleeker private jet. But instead, extreme wealth unlocks this totally bizarre detour, a massive, incredibly slow-moving blimp that can literally be pulled along the ground by a single rope. And to afford this $300,000 price tag to rent this colossal airship, they wrapped the entire exterior in a massive 6-figure sponsorship from ZipRecruiter. But here's the best part.
Rather than just pasting a boring corporate billboard on the side of this giant floating canvas, they hilariously customized the text. They broadcasted a massive message reading, "I heart Carl's mom," to the entire world. I'm pretty sure that has to go down as the most expensive joke in modern aviation history.
And the scale of the audience for this prank is just staggering. They didn't fly it over some empty field. They flew this massive blimp directly over the Daytona 500. That's one of the biggest racing events in the world. They literally had a crowd of 150,000 people looking up at the sky, actively chanting, "We love Carl's mom." You can't make this stuff up. But they didn't forget the sponsor that footed the bill. They seamlessly wove ZipRecruiter into the stunt by conducting a live job interview for a video editor position while floating 3,000 feet in the air. Calling a candidate named Thomas from a blimp to ask how he'd improve their videos? Absolutely brilliant way to plug a sponsor before coming back down to earth. Okay, let's get to the main event. Section 3, the climax, a $500,000 flying mansion. We have reached the absolute zenith of this explainer. The very first thing that happens when you board this aircraft. The flight attendant strongly suggests you take your shoes off immediately. Why? Well, because the carpet beneath your feet is worth $2 million. Just let that sink in. You're walking on a surface that costs more than most people will earn in their entire lifetime. At this level, you guys, you really aren't on a plane anymore. It's a flying mansion. The square footage is actually larger than most standard houses. Walking through it, you've got a massive living room, multiple bedrooms, including dedicated quarters just for the crew, gold-plated sinks, multiple showers, a lounge that seats a dozen people, and your own dedicated theater room. And if you get tired walking around this flying estate, just sit back and get an on-board in-flight massage. Yet, amazingly, even at this absurd peak of luxury, they found room to complain. Finding standard high-end chocolates on board, the hosts jokingly called them gas station chocolate, literally tossed them out, and had the flight attendant restock the jet exclusively with Feastables. I guess true luxury really is just getting exactly what you want whenever you want it. Now, typically, an aircraft like this is strictly reserved for billionaire executives and royalty, but they totally flipped the script here. They filled this $500,000 flight with random subscribers. And not only did these fans get to experience the most inaccessible jet on the planet, but they were also surprised with an all-expenses-paid 2-day trip to Disney World. What an incredible way to share a literally impossible experience with everyday people. So as we wrap up this wild journey from a $1 flying lawnmower to a $500,000 palace in the sky, it completely redefines how we think about luxury and value. When a single one-way plane ticket rivals the cost of a permanent family home, you really have to ask yourself, if someone handed you $500,000 today, would you buy the ultimate flight of a lifetime, or would you just buy a house? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep your eyes on the skies.